I have a concept which I call the three W's. First of all, we need to establish where somebody is. So that's taking a snapshot of the current situation. So what are the excuses? What are your avoidance strategies? What are you not doing? What is it you're not happy with? If you carried on repeating this avoidance and not showing up as much as you would like, what impact would that have on you? The mind works on two levels, to avoid pain, but then towards pleasure. So most people get stuck in that pain cycle.
I'm Becca Pountney, wedding business marketing expert, strategist, speaker, and author. Over the last decade, I've combined my love of marketing with my knowledge of the wedding industry to help thousands of wedding pros and venues just like you learn new skills, strategize, get re-energized, and grow their businesses. Because after all, that's how you stay top of your game. Whether you're brand new into this industry or been here forever, I want to help. So grab a cup of tea or a cocktail, sit back and enjoy a brand new episode of my award-winning podcast, Wedding Pros Who Are Ready to Grow. Let's get going with today's episode. Today, I'm chatting with Christian Baker, a high-performance mindset coach and hypnotherapist. With 24 years' experience working with business owners and TV personalities, he's helped countless people get out of their own head. Christian's aims are to help you overcome self-doubt, overthinking, and those internal blocks that stop you showing up. And I know that all of you listening have them. Christian has become a great entrepreneurial friend of mine, and I think this is a topic we all need to hear more about. I cannot wait to dive in and chat with him further. Christian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on your award-winning podcast. That's very kind of you.
And no, it's very exciting. And everywhere I go, that little award's in the background because I don't think that's ever going to get old. I'm very excited about my award.
And so it shouldn't. I know it's a while ago, but congratulations again for getting it.
I'm counting down the months because come October, someone else will be the title holder. So I'm just living in the moment, but I will always be the 2025 title holder.
No one can take that away from you.
Absolutely. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Now, I said in the introduction, we've known each other a while now, actually. We've been in various business communities and mindset mentorship programs, all sorts of things together. And I've loved following your journey. And I know you've watched what I've been doing as well. But I don't think I've ever asked you the question about how you actually got into this in the first place. How does one even become a hypnotherapist? So take the listeners back on the journey. How did you get into this world? Have you always done it? Did you have another job before?
Do you know what? After all these years, I should come up with a really good story, but I'll tell you what happened. I've done it longer than anything else. I have had a variety of jobs before this, but I got into this when I was quite young. But looking back, actually, there isn't a complete disconnect. All the roles I had before were of a helping kind, customer servicey kind of system support. I even worked for a courier, and I was involved in helping to find lost parcels. I was always helping people in one disguise. But yeah, I was at a bit of a crossroads. I actually worked on a contract for Virgin Mobile when they launched in the UK. So at the beginning, it was quite exciting, but then I kind of fell into a kind of a computer role that had no qualifications. So I thought I'd better get some. And then I stumbled across a course for a weekend introduction to hypnotherapy. And at that point, I had no interest in it becoming a profession of any kind. It just personal curiosity. It looks interesting. And I went on the course and have invested far too much money ever since on different courses, and quickly got the bug and was fascinated by the topic. And here we are, nearly 25 years later since I trained.
And I think it's a really interesting subject, particularly for those of us in the wedding industry, because there's kind of two areas that we see hypnotherapists and mindset coaches. So there's what you do, which tends to be in the business coaching field, helping people overcome their mindset. But we also have people that go to weddings as a hypnotherapist entertainer that we see at weddings. It's a piece of wedding entertainment. So is it the same thing? Are they different things?
They're very similar. It's the same process that's being used, but obviously for a different purpose. So in the UK, we tend not to see the stage stuff so much anymore. When I first started out, it was still quite prominent. And there was, some big arena tours of the big name was still going at that point. But in America, I know it's still quite a popular thing as well. The level of awareness that is used is the same. But obviously, when a stage hypnotist is doing it to entertain people, he's using it for a different reason, or they're using it for a different reason. And then obviously when I'm looking to help people make changes, the outcome is very much aligned with what they want, rather than me just trying to amuse people with what's possible. But yeah, it is the same, but for a different reason. But I think the caveat that I must put in there, because it's something that comes up all the time, people often, particularly in the early days, would say to me things like, you can't make me do things I don't want to do, or you wouldn't be able to make me do this. And I always say, you're absolutely right. I couldn't and I wouldn't want to. Everybody has the natural ability to respond to it, but equally everyone has the natural ability to resist it. And that's the same if someone comes to me who has got a block over something they want to change or improve. As good as I think I am, I cannot make somebody do it if they really don't want to, or they're not ready yet. So it's my role is that of a glorified guide. I've got some tools, techniques, and strategies that can help you if you want the help, but if you don't waste your time or investment just yet. Wait till you are.
That's good to know. So if we work together, you're not going to make me dance like a chicken. I imagine that's the sort of thing people are scared of. But actually, this is a very different skill, and one that it's interesting. I think it's just interesting that it's the same technique, but used in a very, very different arena. You've worked in this area now for a long time. I said 24 years plus experience. Yeah. What are some of your career highlights looking back from that moment you took the course until now? What are some of the cool things you've done in this field?
You know, it's been a blur, but I think looking back, there's quite a few. I mean, the obvious ones have got to be, some of the TV stuff I've been privileged to do, which has been quite exciting. From X Factor to 10 Years Younger to earning my Blue Peter badge. There's been some really good things that I never would have thought would have been something I would get involved in when I started out. But I think even just, I always said when I started doing this, if I just help one person, it's going to be worthwhile. And, some of the smaller breakthroughs that my own one-on-one clients have had, to see the transformation people make, I still take great pride and pleasure in helping people to get unstuck and move from where they are to where they want to be. And that's why I'm still doing it. It's running a business isn't easy, as we all know, but helping people just makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the results that you see. Now, I know you've worked with all sorts of names and you're not going to give away any of the people that you've worked with, but can you tell us any stories, any success stories of people? Feel free to change some details to keep them anonymous, but it would be great to know the kind of success people have seen, particularly in the business arena, around having worked with you.
Yeah, there's been countless. Like you say, I do have client confidentiality, but many of my clients, particularly as social media has evolved, have mentioned me in posts, and obviously the TV works in the public domain. So although that's not business orientated, people have seen that and can see that. So I think I am very lucky to work with some very accomplished, successful people, and they're not immune to the same blocks, the same stresses, the same obstacles that we all face. And, it doesn't matter if someone's starting out on their journey or they're about to exit their company for millions of pounds, they're human. So they have the same kind of emotions that we all have. So, there's many where, someone's struggling with a particular season in their life, which is affecting the business. And that could be financial, it could be health, it could be family matters, or it could just be the stress and overwhelm and demands and the responsibility of doing what they do. So, a big part of what I do, regardless whether it's somebody who is performing on the pitch or on stage or in the business arena, is to help them to kind of get that internal reset, to calm things down and to kind of get them back on track, doing the things that they want to be doing, rather than getting distracted by the internal head noise that's often very debilitating, and people often say, oh, it's all in your head, or they dismiss it for mental health reasons as if it's not significant, but it's it really does impact people's lives. And in business, actually, that's one thing that comes up quite a lot: the amount of business leaders, whether that be line managers or CEOs or founders of companies, who will say to me things like, geez, for years, I've just thought people have been pulling the wool over my eyes, or, mental health card. I didn't believe it's true. But when they've had a season in their own life where they've been faced with, whether it be stress or anxiety, suddenly they have a new perspective, and they go, okay, I get it now. So unfortunate that someone has to have that experience before they take it seriously. But that's happened quite a few times. And I think that's quite invaluable, because then what that does is that person then takes that into back into their business, back into their life, back into their family, and they have a whole nother kind of approach and empathy for people who they come into contact with thereafter.
Yeah. And I often say it on stage and to the coaching clients I work with, so much of what goes on in your business is down to what goes on in your mind. Like mindset blocks are such a big thing. And I think what's really interesting is something that I want to pick up on that you said, that you work with all these really successful people. And from the outside, there's probably other people that look at those people and go, they're absolutely smashing it. And they would be shocked to know that they've had to come to you. So why do you think it is that even the most successful people, the people who are doing the most amazing things, still struggle in this area?
Because they're human. That's it. And I have had people come to me and they'll say, if my staff, if my family members, if my friends knew that I was getting help for this, they wouldn't believe it. Because externally, and in so many areas of their life, they do look like they've got it all together. And, and that often fuels frustration with people because, I've had people who on paper have got it all, and it's happened so many times where people have come back from an amazing, luxurious holiday, no cares, no stresses. Currently, they have had before to get to that point. But in their life now, it's like, now of all times, why now? Things are good. And it is often the mind just keeps going and it gets to a point where it's kind of like, I need a reset, enough's enough. But yeah, I always say we're all human. We're all human. And if we put that into a different context, it's like, a doctor can still get ill. A physio can still get injured. A professional sports person who has a huge team around them that keeps them in top condition, they can still get injured as well. So, it doesn't matter how successful, how accomplished you are, how much experience you've got, thoughts, feelings, emotions, the mindset has a part to play. And it's one of those things that, a little bit like fitness, you don't go to the gym once, do a few exercises, tick it off and never have to do it ever again. It's something that you can constantly improve, evolve. And then, that classic, what got you here won't get you there. So as you face new seasons, as new growth, new areas of development in life and in business, then you come up against different things that challenge you, that cause you to either grow or stay stuck. And the choice we have is to either do something about it or leave it to chance.
So in your opinion then, if we get a breakthrough, that's not the end of the journey. It's something that we're constantly having to come back to and revisit at different seasons of our life?
100%. Yeah, I think, and those clients I work with on a long-term basis, as I said, many of the clients I work with who are very successful, they have their own team around them, if you like. For years and before I retired, I had this business coach who would constantly send his clients to me because they were working on the strategy piece. He was giving them like the guidance to grow the business, but he'd come up against resistance because the mind was getting in their way of growing. So he'd say, go to Christian. And that's where the name for one of my frameworks came from. He used to say, go to Christian, get your head shite sorted out. And, in order to move forward, we often have to update what's going on in our head. So, yeah, these people are successful already. Often they've got a business coach, they've got a good team around them, they look after themselves, but still, different things come up.
And what do you think are some of the attributes that these highly successful people share? Because most of the people you work with are successful people, either in their different various fields or in business. Outside of them having to kind of go through this mindset work, do you think there are some common attributes that you see across the board?
Yeah, I think, one of the reasons they're so great to work with is because they're highly focused, driven, motivated, and they want the outcome and the result. And I think that's what sets people apart. And it's not to say people, it's right or wrong, but some people are quite content and happy with where they are, with the job they've got, with the life that they've got. But if somebody is either not fulfilled with that, they know they've got more in them, they want to strive for something different, then my role is to help them to achieve that as effectively as they can. But, if someone's happy doing what they're doing and they're not deemed a success or high achiever from the outside, then, if they're happy and content, then I think that's still success, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting. And particularly more recently for me, I'm having an insight into it in a sporting sense. So yeah. I don't know if you know, my daughter she's 9 and she's currently signed to Arsenal for a year.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
What's really interesting in that environment is so much of it, I believe, is down to mindset. And I can see it for myself. So all of those kids in there are so talented, but some of them thrive under pressure and some of them crumble under pressure. And we had a review, like a mid-season review, and I was chatting to the coach about her. And it was like, how's she doing on skill? How's she doing on social? And then she said, and how's she doing on mindset? And so at that level, they're already at 9 going, we want to know how these kids react when they lose. How do these kids react when it doesn't go their way? How do these kids react when they are constantly under pressure? Have they got the mental strength to deal with it? And you see some of them have got the skill, but as soon as they're in that pressured environment, they fall apart. And so yeah, it's really interesting, even at such a young age, for me in that arena, to see the emphasis put on the mind and the brain at such a young age.
Yeah, that's amazing, because to get that introduced at such a young age makes a massive difference. And I think that's one of the biggest difference from when I started out. I think the whole mind, mental health thing still had a huge stigma attached to it. And, I've met people who have been working within football clubs for decades before I even got involved in this, and they had to be there under a different title because it was frowned upon to be seen that a club or a player or a coach or a manager was using somebody to help with that side of the game. But yeah, luckily things have evolved and moved forward an awful lot. But yeah, it's great for that to be instilled at such a young age. And you're right in what you're saying, that if you've got 2 players of equal ability, one's got a slightly different mindset, one's got a slightly stronger or a growth mindset, whatever you want to call it, who's the one that's going to be more consistent and keep pushing through when things get tough? And that's where having that winner's mentality or a growth mindset will pay dividends in the long run.
I think it's interesting because, as you said, times have changed and that is becoming more of a norm for my children's generation. But actually, those of us that missed out on that, we shouldn't be ashamed that we still need to catch up on that mindset work, because we didn't have it necessarily instilled in us, depending on our upbringing, depending on our education, but definitely not in the same way as it is coming now. And I think, do you think there is still a bit of stigma around people feeling like, oh, I don't want anyone to know that I've got to do this mindset stuff?
100%. Yeah. But just not as much as it was. So yeah, there's still a huge stigma. Times people will reach out to me and they'll say, they feel weak for feeling the way they're feeling, or they feel a failure, that they're having to kind of seek out some external help to assist them through that patch. But one thing that's for sure is when they get to the other side, they're so glad they did. And if anything, they beat themselves up for not having done it sooner. There is still a huge stigma attached to it. And again, going back to with physical illness or an injury, I say to them, well, if you kind of injured your leg, you wouldn't beat yourself up for having that injury or having to use crutches or having to go to rehab to get it better. And why should the mind be seen any different? It's part of us. It, as we've just talked about, has a huge impact on our kind of perspective of the world, the life that we live in. So if anything, if something can have such a big impact, I would consider it more of a failure not to utilize it than ignore it because of the stigma of feeling like it's a weakness.
That's so true. I want to talk to you a little bit about limiting beliefs, because this is something I see with my clients a lot in the wedding industry, where they'll look at something, maybe they'll look at something I do. So they'll say, Becca, you've done this amazing thing. You've been on this podcast. You've won this award. You've been on this stage.
It's easy for you, Becca.
Yeah, it's easy. But then they say, I could never do that. Yeah. I would never get that opportunity. And I always just want to be like, why not? What makes you any different to me? We're just people giving things a go. Why do you think people struggle so much with limiting beliefs? Is it something going on in our mind?
Yeah, that's where it is. That exactly is the root of it. And again, it's not right or wrong. It's I could talk about this all day, so I'll do my best to keep it succinct. It's where my SHITE framework comes from. And over all the years of working with people, I distilled it to the framework that first of all we're looking at self. It's self-worth, self-belief, self-esteem. And then we have to look at habits, the things we do consistently. Is what we do moving us towards what we want or further away from it? Then we look at the identity piece, which is kind of really linked in with the limiting beliefs. It's how we see ourselves. It's what we believe to be true about ourselves. And in business, it comes up a lot, particularly because if you think about it, give me an example of someone in your world who may have said that, a photographer or, a wedding planner or something.
Yeah, so I worked with a celebrant recently, and we had this conversation. He said, no one would ever want to interview me on a podcast.
Yeah. So firstly, what's going on is, particularly when they're looking at you and what you've achieved, they're comparing. But and I get it a lot as well. I hear people say to me, it's easy for you, you've done this, you've done that. It hasn't always been easy for me. And I didn't start out doing those things. I've worked hard, I've done a lot that people don't see to get to that point. So again, it's that classic of, it's unfair to make comparisons with somebody else's chapter 10 with our chapter 1. Someone else's highlight reels with the stuff that goes on and the bloopers that are not seen behind the scenes. So I think that needs to be considered. But coming back to the identity piece, that celebrant, for example, I'm making some assumptions here, that they weren't born a celebrant and they haven't been doing it all their life. So often what happens with the identity piece is that if somebody has ventured out into something new, or they've become self-employed, their mind is still often operating to an identity of when they're an employee, or a different role they had in their life, or the husband, the wife, the partner, the child, the friend that other people see as having a different role to play in life. So it's almost like they've run into this identity and this programming that is now out of date for where they are now. So the work I do with people is to help them to update that identity piece and get that aligned for where they are, for the outcome they want, for the results that they want to achieve in their life now, not for how it used to be in the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so that gets us to I. What are the last couple of bits of that framework?
Thoughts, that internal script, that dialogue, the inner narrative, the phrases that people say both out loud, like they did to you, I could never do that, or the things they say to themselves. And often that is happening at the level of identity that they're currently holding. So it's reinforcing it. I could never do that. I'm not good at this. I can't do that. I'm not enough. All those things that go on, which simply reinforces where they're at. And it's the mind doing a brilliant job. The mind's primary objective is to look after us, to protect us, to keep us as we are. So if the mind has this programming to this old identity, it's just trying to look after it and protect it. So that's why we often need to update it for where we are, for what we want to be doing, rather than run into out-of-date software. And again, I make that comparison with technology. If you're using, I've got one here, and it's just coincidental. I found it the other day. My very first mobile phone. Loved it, amazing, brilliant, all those years ago. But it can't do the things that phones can do today. So if that's what I had to use every day, it'd be frustrating. And our mind is the same. So it's not right or wrong. The programming, the identity that we hold from the past probably served us well then. But we're in a different place now. So we just need to update that kind of neck-top computer for where we are, for what we want, rather than just kind of getting frustrated with trying to use something that just doesn't work. Even on our modern phones, if the phone's always getting updated, if the latest software means that an app that you love and use no longer works, but you hadn't done the software update, you wouldn't be surprised. You just update it. But in life, when it comes to things like self-belief, limiting beliefs and identity, we just kind of keep beating ourselves up for what we don't want, and that keeps us stuck where we don't want to be. So that's where we have to make a change.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you say that we're operating from this kind of old operating system. I think I've been going through that myself recently with some opportunities and the way I've changed, because sometimes I have to say no to opportunities that Becca 3 years ago would have said yes to. And I have to remind myself I'm not the same Becca I was 3 years ago. And that was a big opportunity then, but actually I've moved on, I've evolved, I've done different things, and that's okay. But I have to constantly tell myself that, or have other people around me going, what, why have you said yes to that? Why is Becca now said yes to doing that is so far past what you should be doing now? And so even I struggle with that. We all do.
It's like a ladder, isn't it? And we somebody who's looking in at you and what you're doing now and what you've achieved and your reward and everything else, that wasn't on your radar when you were starting out. But as you progress, as things move forward, opportunities open up and things change. But if we're holding on to those old limiting beliefs, then it can slow us down and get in the way.
I don't know on your thoughts on this, but I would love to just get your perspective, if you're happy to share, around nature versus nurture in this area. So I already mentioned my child who plays football, and she has, I often talk about her because she has currently very little limiting belief. She believes she can do everything. She's very self-confident. And then I have another child, the older child, who is the absolute opposite, who says, oh, I could never do that, or I don't want to be the center of attention, or I don't think I'm good enough, even when they are. And I think I brought these two humans into the world in the same household, in the same upbringing, and yet their mindsets are so different. And it's incredibly frustrating, because sometimes I think you need to be a bit more like you, and you need to be a little bit more like you.
And that's, again, we're all different. And, you've given us a clear example, but you see it countless times where people have come from the same environment, the same upbringing, and they've turned out completely different. And it's taking children out of the equation for a second. I've worked with a lot of people who often it's not even big events that have shaped people. Sometimes it can be something really trivial that someone or their mind has latched onto, which has then caused them to think and feel a certain way. So, you could have the perfect upbringing, the perfect teaching, the perfect home environment, but there could have been something that you've picked up along the way that just has shaped you. And again, once the mind has learned something, once it's adopted a way of thinking and feeling, the mind kind of protects it. But in your context, the good news is with that, it's hopefully encouraging that it's possible for people to kind of be a bit more like that if they wanted to. And I think I like to remind people that even if some people are naturally more confident than somebody else, it's all trainable. It's still learnable. It isn't that you're either born with it or you're not. Yes, of course, your upbringing plays a huge part of it, but it's still absolutely changeable.
I think that's really important as well, because there'll be some people listening talking about limiting beliefs who will already be saying to themselves, yeah, well, that's okay, but I couldn't do that because I'm not that person, or I could do this because I had that upbringing. It's just who I am. But actually what we're saying is, no, it's not. You can absolutely reboot, reset that mind that in your head. And
it's not to diminish whatever someone's been through, but like I said to you, I've worked with people who've had some really horrific events in their life. And I've had people who've had something really minor in comparison, but the impact on them have been the same, or sometimes the lesser one has had more of an impact. So it isn't kind of quantifiable in that way. But it's more about, if you get to a point where enough's enough, you don't want it, you'd rather have a different way of thinking and feeling, then it is 100% changeable.
And we're not saying that changing our thinking is the driver to lead to success, but what we're saying is as in, we're not saying, oh, well, you can just take that away and you'll think differently and then everything will be perfect. That's not what we're saying, is it? We're just saying that we're going to attack it with a different perspective.
Yeah, and it can have a huge impact in helping you to achieve the things that you want, and it will certainly help and aid it. But of course, you've got to have a plan, you've got to have a strategy. I work with people, and I say strategy alone isn't enough, because usually I'm working with people who've got the strategy, they've got the plan, they've got the know-how, they're very intelligent. They know a lot already. I'm not telling them how to do that thing, but it's the kind of mind that's the missing piece that we need to help them with. So it's getting the two working in alignment together. But you're absolutely right. If you're full of confidence but you've got no plan, that's not a great combination either.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarity on that, because I don't want anyone going to bed tonight thinking, if I just lie here and think tomorrow I will become a millionaire, that they're going to wake up the next day and it's all solved, because that's not what either of us are about. It's about the two things, the mindset and the planning and strategy working together. Now, Christian, you've got some new work, which I'm incredibly interested in, and I want to ask you a few questions about it now. So you have recently started talking about something that I know that my listeners 100% struggle with, and that's how to help people get out of their own head and feel comfortable and confident on camera. So talk to me about where this has come from. Why now? Why do you think this is a conversation we need to be having in 2026?
It's a new version of something I've been doing for years. If you think, starting out, I've always helped people with, fear of public speaking, getting ready to do presentations, whether that be just a team meeting or whether that be a CEO who's got to address the board or do massive on stage, keynote speeches. wedding speeches. Over the years, I've helped with them all. And the contestant I worked with on the first year of X Factor, it was performance nerves, and she kept forgetting the lines, the words of the lyrics. So it's something that I've always done. But I think the way we work, obviously, the huge popularity of social media has meant that things have shifted slightly. Where I've had a lot of people say to me, like we were saying earlier, I've been putting content out for years in one form or another. Haven't always found it easy, haven't always found it comfortable, but I just do it. And people will say, and I do a lot of live kind of broadcasts and webinars and Zoom things, and people say, "Oh, it's easy for you. I wish I could do that." And yeah, there's just been more and more chatter, more and more conversations, and a number of clients, particularly in the last 6 months, who, even if it's not a business person, I've had this young lady came to me who she keeps getting the Teams terrors. So every time that she has to do a Teams meeting, she's petrified. In the office, in the same meeting, she's absolutely fine. But there's something about the camera and the screen that just took the anxiety to a whole nother level. And that's happened quite a few times, probably more so in the last couple of years, when we were doing a lot more online, where people who had confidence to deliver it in one format were really struggling with it in another format. But from a business point of view, I think we've all heard that video is good for business. I'm not saying that everybody should do video. If you don't want to do video, it's your business, don't do it. Find another medium. But if you want to do video and you're struggling to kind of put yourself in front of the camera consistently, then there's some work that could be done to make it easier for you, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now in 2026, I've been talking about it a lot to people. If you want to do well on social media is a choice. But if you want to do well on it, particularly on Instagram, you got to get on camera. You've got to get your face on. The old way of doing it, posting pretty portfolio pictures now isn't working. And I think we're definitely in this trust recession with AI where people don't believe anything they see. And so actually seeing you showing up on camera is important to them. So what do you think are some of the common reasons? I know the ones that people give me, but I'd love to hear it from you. What are some of the common reasons people would say to you, this is why I don't show up on an Instagram reel, for example?
I mean, before we go there, just to back up to what you said, I think why video is so beneficial is because the basic that is always taught in marketing is the know, like, and trust factor, isn't it? And I think there's no other replacement for how video can do that. It's not the only way, and I'm not saying you should if you don't really want to do it. But if you want to give yourself the best possible chance, like you say, in the world of AI and that trust recession, it's the fastest way to build that know, like, and trust factor and create that kind of human connection with people. And will you be for everyone? No, but that's fine. But you will attract the ones that do vibe with you, and you'll repel the ones that don't. And that's great because you save yourself an awful lot of time. If someone's not met you or spoken to you before and you don't connect, well, if they reach out to you and they want to do business with you, there's a high chance if they've consumed some or a lot of your video content, then you're already further down that process than what you would be if it was just pretty pictures or text alone.
Yeah, so true. So let's go into those.
Yes.
Why do people not want to do it?
I think we all struggle to do anything that feels uncomfortable. And that's it. There's so many things that make it uncomfortable. As I said earlier, the tech is a huge thing. Often if you're recording on your own, you're talking to a camera, which is a foreign alien thing if you've not done it much before. So there's the fear of being judged. There's the worry that no one's going to want to listen to you. Who are you to kind of be the one doing this? Fear of failure, fear of success, just that visibility of sticking your head up and being seen can be uncomfortable. And when I say uncomfortable, why that matters from a mindset perspective is that when we do anything that feels uncomfortable, the mind is triggered into that protection mode that I mentioned to you earlier, that its primary objective is to keep us safe. The mind is not programmed for visibility, it's programmed for protection. So if we do anything that feels slightly new, different, or uncomfortable, the mind goes, whoa, what's going on? And then it goes into that protection mode. And that's where often then people experience feelings that can feel a bit stressy, a bit kind of panicky, a bit worried. Or then we go into that overthinking loop and we try and talk ourselves out of it by justifying why we shouldn't be doing it. And then that stalls us and keeps us stuck. So yeah, that's primarily why it's uncomfortable. But if you think of anything, if you go back to your daughter, for example, if she went to a training and they started a new drill that she'd never done before, the first few times it's going to feel a bit uncomfortable. But we have the ability to either persevere and practice it so it becomes more comfortable, or go, whoa, I'm not doing that, and miss out on the opportunity of developing by giving it a go and kind of learning and growing as we go is a phrase I like to kind of use. No one starts out accomplished and comfortable doing anything. If anything we've ever learned in life, if you look at it, driving is a good example. When people first learn to drive, they're thinking about the process, the mirror signal maneuver and being aware of everything. But now most people, once they've passed their test and have been driving a while, they just get in and drive. They don't think about it. Often not until they see blue lights behind them and then they start making erratic moves. But that's because they then start to think. And the moment you start to think, that's when we get in our own way and trip ourselves up. Whereas if you can practice something and get comfortable enough with something so it just becomes something you do on autopilot, you might not enjoy it. But if you can do it neutrally, just as a task, then even better. Even better. Did that answer your question?
That did answer my question. And I think another thing I wanted to ask you about, because I want to call out some listeners who are already thinking these things in their mind. Do you think our mind protects us with avoidance strategies? Because I hear all sorts of excuses from people who haven't shown up. Oh, I'll just show up once I get a better camera. Oh, I'll do it when I've had my hair done. Oh, I'll do it when I've got more time. And they've convinced themselves of a really good reason why they're not doing it. But I think it's just an avoidance strategy.
Yeah, I'll be kind to those people a little bit. It's not a conscious thing. I don't believe anybody wakes up and says, right, how many excuses can I come up with today? What are the reasons I can stop myself from doing this? It is the mind's protection. The mind is the biggest excuse-making mechanism in the world in order to justify our current programming, our state that it's trying to protect. So yeah, your mind will throw up all the reasons in the world. And it's a little bit of a frustration of mine, if I'm honest, when it comes to kind of the coaching world, that often coaches will kind of blame people for not doing the things they want. Because, people do want to do it. It's just that their mind is programmed to do something else. So they're having this massive internal power struggle and battle. So our job is to help them, to guide them, to assist them, to make it as easy for them as they possibly can. But yes, 100% avoidance is a natural response to doing something that's uncomfortable. And there'll be some really bizarre things that people will come up with. And I think if you ask them, they would be surprised sometimes with the excuses they come up with themselves. But it's just the mind going, let's stay safe. Let's stay in this place. So it's about making the unfamiliar feel more familiar, which then feels more comfortable, and then you can feel more confident.
I love that. And I think it's really important, that differentiation, because actually it might be that they want to do it. They just are struggling internally that they can't do it. And often I'll ask people follow-up questions when they ask me these things. And then they start to realize, oh, it's actually a whole lot deeper than it seems on the surface. Because actually it's easy to just go, well, just do it. Just do it right now, tomorrow. And that's the most frustrating thing to anyone to hear. And I'm sure I'm guilty of saying that to people in the past, but actually they might just be thinking, well, I do just want to do it. But I can't. So let's get practical for a minute, because I'm sure there's people in this podcast episode listening and thinking, yes, I see this problem. I have it myself. Do you have any practical things, any frameworks, any tips to help them move a step forward?
Loads. How long have you got? The first place I always start is looking at the foundations, and that is kind of getting clear on why they want to do it. If we focus on video for a second, then if somebody wants to do more video, all right, I have a concept which I call the 3 W's. First of all, we need to establish where somebody is. So that's taking a snapshot of the current situation. So what are the excuses? What are your avoidance strategies? What are you not doing? What is it you're not happy with? If you carried on repeating this avoidance and not showing up as much as you would like, what impact would that have on you? The mind works on 2 levels, to avoid pain, but then towards pleasure. So most people get stuck in that pain cycle. They recognize that they're not comfortable. They might force themselves to put one video out, and then as soon as they've done that, they retreat and then don't do one for months. And again, that's the mind going, whoa, that was weird, that was uncomfortable, let's go back to that safe place. But if you keep talking about, I'm not very good, I can't do that, it will keep you stuck there. And if you think in a simplistic way that the mind has almost like its own inbuilt GPS system, so it's only as good as the programming you give it. So if you think, you feel, you believe that you can't do something, you're just reinforcing, and you're going to stay on that path. So then we need to look at the next W, which is, if anything was possible, if you could wave a magic wand, if you could have the self-belief, if you could have the self-confidence, what do you actually want to be doing? And get really clear on that. So if it's somebody who wants to post one video a week, two a week, one every day, whatever it might be, get clear on what it is that you actually want, and also how you want to kind of be. So if it is calm and comfortable on camera, you got to kind of get your mind kind of primed and activated towards making that happen. And then a lot of people can get to that place on their own. Obviously, with work we do together, we kind of really get clear on both of those. But the missing piece for a lot of people that they don't really connect to as much as would be helpful is to connect to the why. Why do they want it? Why do they want to do more video? What impact would that have to them personally, to their opportunities, to their business, to their income? Because nobody wants to do more video, but there's a reason behind it. It's like when I was at the gym this morning, there wasn't many people smiling in there. I don't think many people wanted to be in there, but they wanted the result they were getting from being there. And that's kind of what, video is. It's another task. It's another tool that could possibly accelerate your business. So I'd encourage people to just give that some thought. What is it they want, and why do they want it? Resistance is usually because of lack of clarity. When you haven't got clear on what you want and why you want it, that's the resistance then keeps fueling the direction you take. So everyone's different. So, there isn't a right or wrong. It's kind of connecting to your own unique personal kind of driving force, momentum, if you like. And if we stick with the GPS analogy, I say to people, if you had decided that you're going to go on a road trip, you've planned for it, you're prepared for it, you've been looking forward to it, you're really excited for it, you get in the car to go, but you've got no fuel in the tank. That's pretty frustrating. And with electric cars, most people often don't have enough charge to get where they want to go. But connecting to your why is about connecting to your own unique personal charge. So then the kind of fuel is about getting the outcome and enjoying the outcome rather than the vehicle that's going to help you get there. So it isn't about the video, it's about the result that video will give you. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And I see it in my own life in another area, because I am terrified of flying. I do not like going on planes. I definitely feel uncomfortable for the entire plane journey, but I make myself do it because the reward at the end is so worth it. And I guess it's that same thing. I still do not feel comfortable. Do I feel more comfortable than I used to? Probably. But is it something I would choose to do for fun? No. But do I want the thing at the end of it enough to put myself through that discomfort? Yes, I absolutely do. And so, that makes perfect sense to me, because actually if they can see what they're trying to achieve at the end and they want it enough, it's worth the discomfort overcoming moment.
Yeah, and that's you just using that with sheer willpower, determination, and conscious effort. So for you to be able to put yourself through something that uncomfortable and still do it is brilliant. But some people would be able to do the same with video until it gets more comfortable, or it's learning some other strategies and techniques that will help make it even easier for you. And I help a lot of people with fear of flying, and it's the same. Some people can just do it and not enjoy it. Others are completely petrified about it and need that little bit of extra help to enable them just to get there, let alone get on the plane.
What about in that moment? Is there any practical tips? The person's like, right, I'm going to do this. They get their phone up. They're about to go live or record their thing. Any practical tips for what they should do to prep themselves for that moment?
Sure. If people first focus on that foundation piece, can't overlook how impactful that will be. Because once you take the pressure off the video bit and focus on why you're doing it, and also, again, it applies to your people as well. It's how you're helping people, what you're sharing with people that's going to help them have the most amazing day that they possibly can. If you've got something to share with somebody that can make them have that magical day, then you're doing yourself and them a disservice if you're not sharing that message with them. So it's putting the focus on one person is kind of the first point, if you like. Instead of trying to appeal to everybody, have that ideal client that you would love to work with in your mind. I know people talk about having that client avatar, but even if you just make it a little bit more simplistic than that, if you've had the perfect couple that was just a dream and a pleasure to work with, think of them, or think of a new version of them, so that when you're making video, it's like you're talking into the lens, which is another tip, but you're talking to that one person, sharing that one message, and then you're not kind of feeling like you're talking to the whole of the social media world.
Yeah,
that puts pressure on.
That makes sense. And I think realizing that you're talking and helping them rather than trying to make it about you is a great reframe. What are your thoughts?
Take it off you. Take it off you. It's not about you. It is not about you. You're delivering the video to grow your business, to bring more income, to have more of an impact, but to help that couple, that individual have the outcome that they want, and make it about that.
What are your thoughts on reframing? Because I think I've got through a lot of my life in business by reframing things. So, for example, your example there, when I first went live years ago and I talked about something and someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you so much for that video. I wouldn't have come to this event if I hadn't have heard it." And from that moment, I did that reframe in my head. I say that to people all the time. Don't think about what is about you. Think about, I'm doing a disservice to that person if I don't do it. So what are your thoughts on reframing? Can I throw a couple of things people say to me at you and see how we could reframe them?
100%. Reframing is a really powerful tool, and it's more than just kind of, people often say that's just airy-fairy positive thinking and things like that. It isn't. And you talking and asking me earlier about limiting beliefs, it's one of the fastest ways of flipping it around is to reframe it and focus on the opposite of what you want rather than be stuck in what you don't want. But throw some at me. Okay,
let's reframe this one. Becca, I would go live on Instagram. I would do an Instagram reel, but I'm really worried my friends will see it and laugh at me.
Firstly, before we reframe that, because this comes up an awful lot, your friends, I'm assuming, aren't your ideal client. They're not who you're trying to target. They're not going to pay your bills. They're not going to bring you income. So you should be thinking about them. Absolutely. They're none of your business. What they think of you is none of your business either. Some will be supportive, some will snigger, some will mock you, but that's because they see you as that identity that they hold about you, the friend, the person who used to do something different. So firstly, they're not your person. They're not who you're trying to attract. So do not focus on them in the first place. So that is a bit of a reframe anyway. Ask me the question again.
So, Becca, I don't want to go live. I don't want to go on the reel because I'm worried my friends will see it and laugh at me.
Okay. Well, firstly, if you don't want to go live, don't go live. Just don't do it. If you do want to, then focus on what we've said. Why do you want to go live? And what benefit will it have to you? The reframe is coming. You don't have to go live. When you think you have to or you should be, it's putting pressure on you. Instead, everything we get to do is a choice. So you are choosing to go live. So you're actually in a very privileged position. When I started my business, when you started yours, Becca, we didn't have the platforms available to us. So we're very privileged. We're very fortunate. We have the ability to get our message out there, to get in front of new people faster than we've ever done before. So we actually get to go live. We get the opportunity to do that. So any negative, if we can turn it into I get to, that comes from a place of empowerment rather than a debilitating fear of not wanting to do it.
Yeah, that is really helpful. That's a great way of thinking about it because we're fortunate to have these tools. It's funny, I've been talking about social media a lot. We talked about it earlier about this rise of video. And I make jokes with my members because if we go back 3 or 4 years, talking specifically about Instagram, my members would say to me all the time, "Becca, Instagram is so frustrating. I wish I could reach people who didn't follow me. The only people who see my content is people that follow me. I'm in a loop. The only people that see it, I can't grow my Instagram." And now Instagram has totally transformed their tools and given us every single tool we need to be able to reach people who don't follow us.
There's a new
excuse. Don't want to use them. No. And so, you're right. We have to know we're lucky to have these tools. Yeah. We've been asking for these tools for ages. Now we have these tools. Do we want to use them? Why do we want to use them?
I think that's the problem there, isn't it? It goes back to we're focusing on the tool, we're focusing on the medium, we're focusing on the platform rather than, the purpose behind it. What's our intention? Why do we want to do it? and what's the possibility, what's the opportunity if we were to do it. And I think also the consistency comes into play quite a lot. I don't think many people, I think we've also got that comparison of feeling, not that everyone wants to go viral, but if we only get a few likes or we only get a few views, then it wasn't worth doing. But you only need that one person to see it or to like it or to reach out to you to more than make it worth its while in doing it. So, this whole thing of one video out or a few videos out or doing it for a week or even doing it for a month and then expecting immediate results is another place where people kind of hold themselves back because they don't see the results happening and then think, well, what's the point? But if you're consistent with it over time, look at some of the massive, biggest Instagram or YouTube channels in the world. There's not many that were overnight successes. There was some pretty dodgy videos that went out in the first place, but they've kept going, they've persisted, they've been consistent, and it's paid off in the end.
And I think that big numbers thing is another limiting belief, another mindset thing. That's something I love to say to people at the moment. I said it on a call today to a few people, actually. It's like, why are you complaining to me that only 100 people watch your video? I don't want to post in case only 100 people see it. And then I say, well, if you were stood there and I invited 100 people into this room and said, tell me about your business, you'd think that was amazing. But for some reason, we see that and we think, oh, we failed. We failed. Only 100 people.
To the big numbers, aren't we?
Yeah, but why do we do that?
Because that's our internal kind of interpretation of what a successful video looks like, but is it? And that's where we need to reframe and kind of change our own kind of filter of how we're looking at things. And like you said, in the olden days, if we had 100 people turn up in a room to listen to us, that'd be amazing. That'd be a packed room, and it's kind of almost choosing and deciding what your definition of success would be. And, if you put a video out there, what do you want from that video? Is it just to build a relationship? In which case you don't need massive numbers. But if you continue to build a relationship with somebody, if you got, I don't know what would be a sensible number for your people, but if you got one couple reach out to you who wants to work with you, would that be worth doing? How many a month, how many a year would you want to be able to attribute to your social media videos? And it's probably not anywhere near as big as you think it is. So you probably don't need the big numbers that you think you need. So just kind of dial it down and lower your bar, not your standards, but your expectations of what you should be doing, and just focus on delivering, being consistent, showing up, being visible, and building that know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah, and bringing it back to reality. I just think it's a really interesting subject. I could talk to you about it all day. I had someone else recently who said to me, I just want to go viral on social media. I wish I could reach these big numbers, 50,000, 100,000. And then I said, well, how many weddings do you want a year? They said 15, and I've already got 10 booked. So I was like, you don't want to go viral. You don't need all these people. You need 5 bookings. That's it.
It's, again, vanity, isn't it? It's our own ego. It's what people looking in, if your friends look at your videos and you're getting 10 to 100 views, then what they're going to think of you. Whereas if you could show that you're getting thousands and thousands, if not more, then we feel that we're being more successful. And if that's not what you need for your business, then there's no need to have that as a standard, is there?
And I'm sure there's people listening to this and thinking, help, Christian, I need more help. I can feel myself struggling in this area. Do you have any resources that I can send people to if they want to do some more thinking or work around this area? Yeah,
it would have been rude of me not to. I have created some short video tips to help people, which is on my YouTube channel. But if people go to my website, christianbaker.net/camera, I'll link all the resources, and people can find everything on there. There's a kind of pre-camera recording checklist as well. So go and have a look at that. And if you've got any other questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll make a video to cover that. Or if anyone needs any help, just reach out and let me know.
Fantastic. I'll make sure I link to that in the show notes. And if people feel like they need more help than that, do you do one-to-one? Do you do one-off sessions with people? Is there any other ways people can work with you directly?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I do work with people both virtually on Zoom and in person. So yeah, there's different options for different people for where they're at. But yeah, 100%. If people want to move forward, feeling like they're stuck, feeling like they just need some kind of personal help, then yeah, that's what I do. So feel free to get in touch.
Fantastic. I will make sure I put the links to your website and all those resources in the show notes. Now, I always end my podcast, Christian, with the same question, which I'm going to pose to you now. And it's this: what's one thing you personally wish you'd known sooner in business?
Good question. I think to stop overthinking. I'm the master at overthinking myself, and just to take that consistent action and don't wait to be ready. Just do it and get better as you go. And confidence comes from doing that. If you wait till you're ready, if you wait for the confidence to show up, it's going to slow you down. It's going to hold you back, or it may never happen. So just make today day one. Don't put things off till one day. Make today day one. Take the next step and keep going. And 100% wish I'd done more of that in the early days.
Fantastic. Christian, it's such a pleasure, as always, to chat to you. I love this new work that you're doing around people needing to get more confidence to be on camera. I think it's much needed in the business world. And thank you for taking that and for putting those resources together for people. I will put all of the links in the show notes, and I hope to see you somewhere again very soon.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Love that conversation with Christian. I think the more I'm in business, the longer I'm in this industry, the more I realize how important mindset is, and how many of you are held back by limiting beliefs, by mindset blocks, and just not able to overcome them. So I encourage you, if you've resonated with anything today, go and check out Christian, go look at his website, go and watch some of those videos, because there's no reason that you should be saying, I can't do these things. There's a time for you to reset your brain, and think of it as resetting that computer. Hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you all next time.